It's too bad they're old.
What do you mean, Patrick? Old people are the greatest. They're full of wisdom and experience.
Aye, nigga, shut that shit all the way the fuck up. Now, if you ask me personally, I would tell you, I am not a fan of old people. 1, they smell. 2, they're slow. 3, they take forever in a grocery store. And 4, have you talked to any of them? There's at least a 40% chance they're just extremely fucking racist. And with all that combined, the worst thing about them is they're terrible sports takes. I'm talking about the NBA, I'm talking about the NFL. They seem to think the era they grew up with is better than the modern era or any era that came after it. And I'm here to tell you, no the fuck it's not. And before I really get into this video, let me go on a little rant. So I've been hearing a crazy discourse that playing quarterback back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s is harder than playing quarterback in the modern day, just because the physicality of the game. While yes, the 70s and 80s, 90s had a more physical brand of football compared to modern day, and if you threw a quarterback such as Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, who played nothing but 2010s and 2020s football into the 1970s, they'd be shocked by the hits they get. But also, at the end of the day, if you threw John Elway, Joe Montana, Roger Staubach, Terry Bradshaw, any of the guys from the 70s, 80s, or 90s, and told them to play a too-high shell against a Brian Flores-led defense, they would struggle. The same way if you throw a modern-day guy back in the 70s, and they proceed to get tombstone pow-driven on the field, they would struggle. And what I'd also like to say, we are ignoring players are more athletic in modern day. We are ignoring that defensive schemes have improved tenfold, all the way to the point if you ran a 1980s scheme defense, 1990s scheme defense, it would look like you're running a bygone defense from a bygone era. And we're ignoring simple analytics, all in the favor of physicality. Old heads ignore every aspect it takes to play the game of football. If you've played football yourself, you know it's more than who can out-physical the other person. It's the mental game. It's athleticism. It's off-season training. It's the defensive schemes you run. It's the pieces you put at each position on the field. We are ignoring all that in favor of, yeah, we could fucking drop kick niggas. We could Chris Jericho code breaker niggas on fields. We could give niggas CTE. Players' lifespan expectancy was way lower back then. Like, do you know how stupid you sound, truthfully? That is the most ignorant, no ball knowledge, most unknowing take I've ever heard, and it's very popular amongst the people that are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. I will admit the physicality of the modern day isn't what it used to be. There is rules to help the offense, but to act like defensive schemes aren't better, to act like you literally can't throw the deep ball because the defense won't allow you to in the modern day, and quarterbacks aren't just reading pre-snap motions anymore like they were in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, is disingenuous as fuck. Basically, what I'm saying from this rant is, it's disingenuous to say a 70s, 80s, or 90s quarterback couldn't play in the modern era because there's aspects of our game that's harder, because there's aspects of the game in the 70s, 80s, and 90s that modern day quarterbacks also couldn't adjust to. And pretending one is better than the other is borderline special, and it's borderline moronic to even do, unless you have that little understanding of the game of football and how it has evolved. With that being said, let's really get into this video. Wait! If you don't want to be a sex offender like Lawrence Taylor, like, comment, subscribe. Now let's get into this video. So first off, I was just on Instagram for real, and I was scrolling looking at NFL content, and I came across this clip and I found the original video to it. And this is what made me want to make this video, because this is an NFL offensive lineman, as you see. He played for the Denver Broncos. He played football in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I'm sure he's a knowledgeable guy, but in this video, it doesn't fucking sound like it, my guy. With that being said, again, he's an NFL player. He's made more money than I'll ever make. He's gotten probably more bitches than I'll ever get. He's better at football than anything I'll ever be better at. And his wife's boyfriend is probably nicer to him than mine is. But with that being said, let's get into this clip.
My next claim is John Elway was better than any modern day quarterback.
At what?
At playing quarterback.
What defines a quarterback? So he's better than Patrick Mahomes. At what element of football?
At every element of football.
Okay, don't be so specific there, pal.
We're going to stop it right there because he even says it. Don't be more specific there, pal. At every element of the game of football, John Elway is better than Patrick Mahomes as a playoff performer. even in a worse situation arguably than John Elway, and John Elway played in the weakest division in NFL history in the AFC Conference in the 1980s. Patrick Mahomes was a better playoff performer. He's a better regular season performer. And even if you adjust John Elway's stats per era, Patrick Mahomes almost beats him in efficiency metrics in every way possible. He has more MVPs. He was considered the best quarterback in the league more than once. And John Elway wasn't even ever considered really the best quarterback in the league, because the one year he won MVP in 1987 throwing 19 touchdowns with 12 interceptions, he was second team All-Pro to Joe Montana. After Patrick Mahomes' first year, he had as much individual accolades as John Elway. Let that sink in. It's not even the stats. It's not even that he has more accolades. It's not the fact he has more Super Bowls, Super Bowl MVPs, and is all around just a better playoff and Super Bowl performer. It's the fact he's literally more talented than this nigga as well. He throws a prettier deep ball, he has better arm strength, and his mobility and getting out of the pocket would crush defenses in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, because John Elway was mobile, but quarterbacks just weren't asked to do that. That is a talent that goes beyond any era of football and would translate well to each of them. As an improviser, as having a strong arm, as being an efficient NFL quarterback, Patrick Mahomes beats John Elway, and it's not even close. That's just the objective truth. While John Elway is one of the most talented quarterbacks of all time, Patrick Mahomes is almost a culmination of every great quarterback archetype combined into one. I'm not even kidding. This is no glaze. You can see a little bit of everybody in him at some points. If you need him to run the ball, he can do that. If you need him to play more quick game and throw shorter routes and dissect the defense, 2022 Mahomes is there. If you need him to be like 1984 Dan Marino, 2018 Patrick Mahomes is there. If you need him to be the smartest player on the field, the 2022 playoffs is right there. And simply put, John Elway just didn't have all these archetypes and metrics and intangibles that Patrick Mahomes has. Point blank, period. It's not really an argument. But I've been yapping. Let's continue the video. Maybe he has a point.
I mean, what are we talking about?
Right. I said that he is a better quarterback than any quarterback in today's game.
But you're not telling me why. Obviously, they're all physically, it's not even remotely close, right? I don't think you would argue that. In terms of pure throwing the football, in terms of knowledge of the game, I don't see how you can compare. So I'm waiting for you to make a claim. You're just saying he's better, right? I could just say I'm taller than you, and then, as we're sitting down, we'll never know. What does he do better than Patrick Mahomes?
Well, the way the game is played today, the game of playing quarterback, or the position of quarterback, has been made exponentially easier than it was in Elway's day. One, all the quarterbacks are protected. You're not allowed to hit them. You're not allowed to touch them in the head. You're not allowed to hit them below the knees. You're not allowed to do anything. The other part of the game today is there is so much quick game. Out on the edges, 3-step drops. There are very few, if any, 7-step drops, deep throws in today's game. It's
Let me stop him right there, because this was the point I was making earlier. Your point literally collapses in on itself, my nigga. I understand you're unk, you're old, you glazed John Elway. It's all the way in your fucking throat, my nigga. But you just said there is no deep or intermediate throws. It's because modern day defenses literally won't allow you to do that. Their scheme's so good that you cannot throw it deep on them. They force you to take what they give you. And saying that makes the game easier is the most smooth brain shit I've ever heard. If you get John Elway from back in the day, where there was no post-snap motions like there is in the modern day, where it was more simple and was like, if he's wide open, I'll throw it to him, and put him in a modern day NFL context with a too-high shell defense that can move almost into any coverage possible after the snap, he is throwing 40 fucking interceptions. Because simply put, NFL defenses are schemed so you cannot go deep. And this was mainly revolutionized by Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes. But I'm going too far right now, because after his first decade in the league, do you know what John Elway's stats were? Screw physicality. Against these inferior defenses he played, he had 158 touchdown passes to 157 interceptions. Now I want you guys to imagine if this nigga saw a too-high defense switch into cover 4 quarters. He would have a fucking seizure, my nigga. It completely annihilates deep crossers. It completely annihilates posts and go routes, things this guy is talking about. And to sit there and say modern day quarterbacks have it easier, and the reason for your argument at the same time is because they can't throw it deep like how they were in the 80s and 90s, when defensive schemes have literally had to stop quarterbacks in the modern day from doing that, and has evolved the scheme so far that you fucking can't, is disingenuous and fucking stupid. Like, I'm not even attacking this guy. This argument is just so brain dead. And this is what I mean about old heads. We are ignoring schemes. We are ignoring the evolution of the game, athleticism, athleticism, speed, post-snap motion that modern-day quarterbacks have to deal with in favor of straight physicality. That is a logical fallacy because there's more to the game of football, I'm sorry to break it to you, than giving niggas CTE. Real shit. That's some caveman fucking shit. But I've been ranting enough. Let's get back into this video.
Completely different.
Have you
than it
watched
used to be.
Mahomes throw that thing deep? I mean, it's a thing of beauty. There are some deep balls, and I'll agree with you that the quarterbacks are protected, but that's like when we get into the NBA, talk about fouling back then.
So it's not about throwing the ball deep. It's about you throw the ball deep off of a 5-step drop. A 5-step drop without a hitch is where you throw a go ball. I'm talking about the deep digs, the intermediate routes, the things that don't get thrown in today's game as they did. They're still throwing some of it, but the frequency and the level with which you threw it back in the day. Now, from an accuracy standpoint, you're not as accurate because all the rules aren't bent back in those days to
What rules are you talking about other than
offense
protecting the quarterback? What rule when
I just paused the video again. I already stated once again, these intermediate, these deep balls can't be thrown in the modern day NFL or it will be an interception. And you'll be seeing something like Tampa Bay versus the Kansas City Chiefs in the 2020 Super Bowl. It's not because NFL quarterbacks can't throw them. It's not because they have an inability to throw them compared to the prior years. It's because defensive schemes have evolved from a bygone era of the 70s, 80s, and 90s that you have to almost play to what the defense will give you unless you're one of the very, very elite quarterbacks of this game nowadays. Just reiterating, by the way.
when he's throwing a dig right in between, I mean, we watched the highlights, right? He can make every
okay,
single
what
throw.
rule?
What other than protecting the quarterback?
Okay,
I mean, Josh Allen wouldn't need protection back then. He'd probably be playing the end. You'd have to block him. Have you seen the size of the guy?
Right. Defenseless receivers. There was a time in the league where you didn't throw to a single high safety down the middle because it was called a medicine ball and he'd get decapitated.
Mahomes loves those, by the way. Did you watch it on Friday?
I'll give that to him. I'll give it to him. The game was more physical. And no offense to the guy on the screen right now, I genuinely don't think he has the football chops to argue with this dude. Yeah, throwing the ball over the middle over a single high safety would be considered a medicine ball or a suicide ball, whatever you would want to call it. But acting like that throw isn't discouraging the modern day NFL is disingenuous. We are talking about how they're different eras. It had aspects of the game that would make the modern day player shiver. And in the 2020s and 2010s, defenses of that era with the complexities, with the schemes, with all the motion that goes on after the snap, from the disguised coverages to making it impossible to throw over the top, would absolutely dog walk John Elway and any 70s, 80s, or 90s quarterback if you throw them into modern day. And to act like they wouldn't is fucking disingenuous. And you probably shouldn't get on a channel with 17,000 subscribers preaching this, because it really makes you sound dumb to anybody that knows football, truthfully. But shout out to this guy. Like I said, he gets more bitches, money. He's probably more famous than me. He could probably knock me out when he was my age, so that's something. But now, let's get into another discussion about old heads. Lawrence Taylor. Now, for me, Lawrence Taylor is the second greatest defensive player of all time, but he is by far and away seen as the greatest defensive player of all time, and he's mythologized to almost Michael Jordan levels. While yes, Lawrence Taylor absolutely evolved and revolutionized the game, but what I would like to say is, just because he revolutionized the game, just because he evolved the game, that doesn't mean he's the better player at football than anybody else. The way old heads talk about Lawrence Taylor, it makes it so that you can't have a single defensive player that comes up next, that comes in the future, that has came in the past, that can be better than Lawrence Taylor. Because for my greatest defensive player of all time, it's Reggie White. Why? Because peak for peak, he had a better peak than Lawrence Taylor. He was a better playoff performer than Lawrence Taylor. He was a better Super Bowl performer than Lawrence Taylor. He was a better run stopper than Lawrence Taylor, and he was a better pass rusher than Lawrence Taylor. He averaged more sacks per game than Lawrence Taylor. He had more tackles for a loss than Lawrence Taylor. He almost had the same amount of tackles as Lawrence Taylor, and he played defensive end and defensive tackle. And not to mention, he's almost as versatile as Lawrence Taylor, being able to play the greatest defensive end of all time, switching to D tackle, and also being a Hall of Fame D tackle that stops and stuffs the run up the middle. And if you take it all into account, that he is objectively the greatest pass rusher of all time, because his peak in 1987, where he played 12 games and had 21 sacks, is better than any Lawrence Taylor season, including Lawrence Taylor's 1986 MVP, where he had 20 and a half sacks. It's really not close. And in that 1986 season, Lawrence Taylor had 0 sacks in the playoffs. And to act like just because he won MVP makes him the better player is also ridiculous. That's like saying 2023 Lamar Jackson is better than 2009 Drew Brees. And 21 sacks in 12 games is just completely unprecedented. I don't think there's a single NFL defensive season that will ever touch that, in my opinion. And even in their time, it was said Reggie White was the better run stopper at defensive end and defensive tackle. And Lawrence Taylor only dropped back in coverage 5% of the damn time. So, if we take into account Reggie White's a better run stopper, he's a better run stuffer, he's a better pass rusher. And that's 95% of both of their games. And the only thing Lawrence Taylor is better than Reggie White at is dropping back into coverage, which was 5% of his game max. How are you going to say Lawrence Taylor is the greatest player when only 5% of his game is better than Reggie White's 95%? That doesn't make sense to me. It's not about if he evolved the game, which he did more than Reggie White. It's not if he revolutionized the game. When you're talking about the greatest player of all time, it's who's the better player at the game of football. And Reggie White excelled at the game of football without evolving the game at a higher level than Lawrence Taylor. And he has better longevity. He has better peak stats. I'll pop him up right now. And he has better all-time stats, being number 2 in sacks in NFL history. And not to mention, you might say Lawrence Taylor has 3 Defensive Player of the Years. And his 1981 Rookie Defensive Player of the Year might be the most fraudulent Defensive Player of the Year in NFL history. In 1981, Lawrence Taylor won Defensive Player of the Year, having 9.5 sacks. He won 26% of the shares in 16 games, and he also had 1 interception. Right behind him on a playoff team was Joe Klecko, a defensive end who had 20.5 sacks. And then behind him, oh look, on the same team, Mark Gastineau that had 20 sacks. And now tell me, do you seriously believe on the 1986 NFL tape that there was 11.5 sack differential of film of Lawrence Taylor that would make up for this Defensive Player of the Year? I mean, all 3 of these men at this point in their career, Bill Belichick even told you Lawrence Taylor's mission was to attack, not to drop into coverage, had almost the same job, and these 2 did it better. But I'll reiterate my point again. At the game of football, Reggie White did it better, and he didn't evolve the game or revolutionize it. The same way LeBron James plays the game of basketball better than Steph Curry, and he didn't evolve or revolutionize the game the way Steph Curry did. Just simply better at the game of basketball. The mythology of Lawrence Taylor being a coked up crack bear on the sideline and made defenders shit their pants makes him the greatest player of all time. I question almost everything about what old heads fucking tell me. And this is not shitting on Lawrence Taylor, even though he's a fucking sex offender. This is just my God's honest truth about this whole conversation, how I've been feeling about it the whole time. Like I said, Lawrence Taylor is the 2nd greatest defensive player of all time, but number 1 should be seen as Reggie White more often than it is. With that being said, y'all, like, comment, subscribe. I'll catch y'all boys later. Peace.